Welcome to Drop Dead the Cabin, where you and a friend must defend yourselves against hordes of zombies and mutants that have escaped from a nearby lab. It's up to you to arm up, complete objectives, and unlock new areas to find the resources you need to survive. This releases February 16, 2023 for the Quest 2 and Pro headsets for $25 US, and for this review we checked it out on the Quest 2. Is this the next VR zombie survival game, or something else entirely? Let's find out. Hello Undead Hunters, this is Ryan from the VR Grid, and before we get to it, make sure you do all the things that help support the channel, and don't forget to tune in every Thursday at 9 PM Eastern Time live for the Virtual Boys podcast. And now, the review. I've played a few of these survive the zombie horde type games in and out of VR, and while this isn't my favorite genre, when playing with others, they can make for some absolutely harrowing times as waves get harder and resources deplete. The Cabin is exactly that, and has been designed with 2 players in mind, though you can tackle this solo, but the difficulty remains largely intact, meaning you're going to die a lot more times and a lot faster until you level up, which will take longer than having added as a duo. The premise here is simple, as you have stumbled upon a strange cabin and must survive long enough to escape while unlocking new areas containing more dangers and more rewards. A quick tutorial takes you through the absolute basics, explaining the main objective of calling for evacuation, which requires maintaining a nearby generator and battery. The former of which requires fuel, and both, when active, will be targeted by the enemies and if damaged will need a quick fix. At each game's onset, there will be some pistols, ammo, a few melee weapons, and milk to refill health scattered around the cabin, but those meager supplies won't last, so, using the research points earned from each kill, you can unlock new areas and supply boxes. For those of you familiar with Call of Duty's zombie game, this is very much akin to that, though the scale of the single map at play takes you well beyond the cabin, and there aren't actually any defenses to maintain or rebuild, it's just you and a friend versus the horde. The tutorial does the minimum when it comes to explaining mechanics, and even though learning all the nuances of the game is a large part of the game loop, I can't help but feel like pivotal information has been left out, making my initial few runs even more challenging than they should have been, and they're already quite hard. Much of that needed info is here, but may only appear during loading screens or by scrolling through all the unlockable perks. These include smaller things like picking up ammo by just walking over it, melee weapons having durability, the fact you can climb, and a host more gameplay elements that you'll have to discover on your own. Not game-breaking by any stretch, and once you know, but when you discover a vital gameplay element after playing a few runs, it can be a little frustrating. That's not to say that every realization isn't rewarding, and every failed attempt typically unlocks some sort of new information, be it how you choose your next path, deciding to open a door or supply box, or any other strategy that may help you get a little further. All your progress is tracked by a few different online leaderboards, so for those that care about such things, they're here. Standard FPS controls are at play here, with a belt at your waist that can hold 2 items on either side, and an ammo pouch in front of you. You can also store 1 item over your left shoulder, which should be used for larger melee weapons, larger guns, or batteries. You can toggle blinders and choose click or smooth turning, though smooth turning only has 1 speed, which is a little slow. You can also adjust the dimensions and height of you and your belt, which I appreciated. Each new game won't have the same enemies or items in the same places, meaning a needed fuel cell may not be where you found it on your last run, or supply crates may be switched up. This also goes for additional weapons found behind locked doors, which are actually quite hard to find given their seemingly random and rare spawns. Once you're situated, you can start the first wave and proceed to survive until rescue, or if you're looking to see just how much the cabin has to offer, you can venture off to the various test sites that reveal substantially larger areas with various challenges. The gunplay is further hampered by some jankiness, as gunshots clearly pass through enemies, headshots don't always register, and reloading can be troublesome with you needing to grab ammo from your belt and place it into the weapon, which does automatically eject a clip or open up, but on occasion, placed ammo wouldn't register and would fall to the ground, costing me precious seconds, and even precious bullets if it disappeared into the environment. There's also the issue of starting weapons, as you only have a choice between a pistol or magnum, the former of which uses twice the rounds to take out a single zombie, so when playing 2 players, one of you is immediately handicapped as both weapons use the same ammo pickup, and depending upon the run, random ammo drops could be unfairly scarce. Using any weapon will level it up, but this process can be painfully slow, meaning that there's no other recourse but for one player to constantly be running out of ammo and relying on melee weapons, which unfortunately are also very unreliable, and for those looking for any type of grenades or explosives, there's none to be found here. As I said, any melee weapons will break, and early on, they break so fast they're almost not worth using, except when things are easier or when you run out of ammo. The thing is, hit detection can be nothing short of awful, and on numerous occasions, swinging with a bat or stabbing with a pitchfork did absolutely nothing but pass through foes, who then proceeded to get so close that a waggle fest ensued and I prayed for a lucky break. Those lucky breaks can happen, as when enemies get close, it seems like their luck can be just as bad as yours, as they also can't seem to land every strike, though usually in these moments, I was being swarmed, so what they lack in accuracy, they make up for in numbers, and I typically died anyways. All of this is compounded by other issues I learned to avoid, like the enemies being able to hit you through walls, dropped items disappearing into the geometry. That picking up things can also be frustrating as it works by pointing at items to pull them to your hand, but highlighting what you're looking at just doesn't consistently work, and that climbing ladders or grabbing at those door locks can be hit or miss, but when it all works, it's a fair bit of fun. The initial tutorial does not explain the full scope of the cabin, and that scope just can't be realized without grinding. As the game warns, you will die a lot. Every run will get you closer to your next unlock, be it a new perk or weapon upgrade, and while those do help, it's figuring out all the do's and don'ts that allow you to hopefully progress further on each run. It's in choosing when to run the generator, when to use the EMP, which doors or shacks to open or paths to follow, and making sure you have what you need before committing to that exploration, as every new discovery usually ended in death, but the lessons learned prepared me a little better for the next attempt. After the third wave, the enemies can be unrelenting, and you need a buddy to travel along with you, as not only are 2 heads and guns better than 1, but you can also revive each other should one of you fall via a hit or miss high five, though if both players die, it's game over. When situations get dire, ammo is getting low and you are only a few kills away from unlocking the next room or test area, it's frantic fun, but it's in that near chaos when all those issues I mentioned typically show up to hamper those potential good times. If you've played a drop-dead game in the past, then what's here will look familiar, with zombies of various color running at you with their glowing eyes, well, more monstrous creatures show up, hurling explosives from a distance, lumbering after you or exploding upon death. There's enough variety in these creatures to make things not look too redundant, and as each foe does have its own behaviors, strengths, and weaknesses, it's best to get familiar with them quickly. That same jank that permeates the game affects the monsters, as they almost teleport through doors and windows or move so fast it looks like they are skipping frames rather than being speedy, but is made up for by the amount of horrors you could be facing at any given time, as being overwhelmed is always a concern. There's only the one level to explore, with much of it being blocked off by those research point gates, and everything in here has a more cartoonish look hidden behind the relatively dark atmosphere. There's a substantial fog in the distance, and with the nighttime setting, many faraway objects appear as little more than silhouettes, and getting close reveals simple textures, though I did find the details in the cabin and on a few select elements to look surprisingly good. A choice that I still find odd, even after hours of play, is the use of Meta's avatars as your in-game ones, as the overly friendly look just didn't quite match the game's style, though it's a minor nitpick, as I did enjoy playing with friends who did sort of look like their actual real selves. Some nice details in the lighting effects of your muzzle flash on the enemies in the environment are a great inclusion, and it all makes for a game that might not look amazing, but still gets the job done, with the presentation being enjoyable despite the flaws. As this is designed around co-op, in-game voice chat is in here and works fairly well, though on one occasion my partner and I couldn't hear each other, but outside of that, talking worked, and you two are always in contact regardless of how far apart you are, as if you're both on the radio. The soundtrack is nothing short of hilarious, as there appears to be only one John Carpenter-esque 80s synth track, and while I do really enjoy the vibes it gives, hearing one song over and over in a game that demands extensive replay might not have been the best choice. Quite wasteful.
This is the one I'm interested in seeing open, hey? Is the one I'm by.
Okay, well, what are we at here? 75? Sounds like a plan.
What are we at, anyways?
We're at 59.
Okay.
.3D audio is on point, and for the most part works great, save for when enemies may be above you, as the spatial audio seems to be relegated to the same plane, making for moments around the cabin to be confusing, as it can be hard to tell where exactly enemies were coming from, though much of the map outside of the house is flat and more open, making this less of an issue. I really enjoy the cabin when playing with a friend, and when everything is working as it should, it's good fun. That rarely is the case, and with the upgrade grind demanding tons of replay, it can be taxing. No matter how good or bad of a run you have, there's always progress being made, and I think, as long as I have someone to play this with, I'd be happy to hop back in for a round or two just to kill some monsters while chatting with a pal. It does have a host of kinks that need to be ironed out, and some balancing issues that should be addressed, but even with all those problems I mentioned, the drive for just one more go to see how far you can get, what else you can discover, and maybe get that next upgrade is here. It just needs some fine tuning. I'm going to give Drop Dead the Cabin a 6.5 out of 10. As a guy who typically hates this sort of grind, I'm kind of digging this. Once again, if you think we're worthy, like, subscribe, hit that bell, and that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching.